You're like good at this, okay?
Well, usually hearing my voice, I get a big smile from people. Once they hear my question, it's not like a joke. They treat it like any other question.
I just remember her being so interested in the WNBA. Oh.
Soon, there she was, 6 years old, with star Sugar Rogers.
What does it mean to play for the New York Liberty?
That's a good question.
That is maybe the biggest play this game.
Let's send it down to Pepper, who apparently just caught that one.
I got the foul ball. Very, very exciting.
It's really important that people can understand that it's a possibility for kids not only to want to grow up to be something, but also to try to make change and make something happen while they're still a kid. Empowered women, empower girls.
You are very inspirational. I didn't have that at 10. So thank you for pursuing that and giving us a renewed hope for what's to come in the future.
Please welcome Pepper Persley.
Everyone, I'm so excited to be here at this amazing conference with so many amazing women, and even more exciting than that is I get to interview someone who is so incredible and inspiring. All right, Carson Pickett, everybody, take a look.
You can't fix having one arm, but to be comfortable in my own skin, I think you need to allow people to see that so that they can feel comfortable with you. I was born with amniotic band syndrome, which is where the circulation cuts off and stops growth from your arm down. So I am missing an arm from my elbow down. My parents found out when I was born. I think a lot of times, they're like, you can do things, but also in the back of their mind, they're like, we have no idea if she can do it. The biggest thing was the monkey bars at the park. My dad would take me and I would see kids just flying across the bars and I was like just watching them in awe. One day when everyone left, he was like, let's go try it. He was under me and I was like, oh, I'm fine, he's gonna catch me if I fall. And he didn't catch me and I fell really hard. At the time I was like, that's so messed up. But I realize now what he was trying to teach me is that if he was standing there, coddling me, then I probably wouldn't take any chances. I knew from an early age that I wanted to play a team sport. My dad played soccer in college, and I think I stuck with soccer just because it was such a bonding experience with him. When I got to Florida State, I was really uncomfortable. I didn't want any of the other athletes to see me as any different and kind of wonder if I was good enough to be there. I remember wearing a sweatshirt walking to class, and I was drenched in sweat, and I'm like, I just don't want anyone to see my arm. The first day, reporters were asking for the veterans on our team and me. I can't believe that I'm, being interviewed with all these amazing players. And when we got done with the interviews, I realized that every single one of them was about my arm. And I remember calling my mom being super upset about it. And she was like, this is a time where you can completely flip your script and you can have the ability to reach people that other people can't. I actually didn't go to the draft because I was like, it's tough. I can't imagine, being there and not getting drafted. I think that would be really hard for me. And then the night before, the Seattle coach, he called me and was like, welcome to Seattle. We didn't get a lot of money back in the day. I think $7,000, and I'm like, whoa, what am I doing? You can't live off that. But you know what? I'm living my dream. It's fine. I'm gonna figure it out. People ask me a lot more about soccer than my arm nowadays, but I want them to ask about my arm now because my mindset has switched so much that I actually invite those conversations. I think I've hopefully created a safe space for people to reach out to me who have the exact same arm as me, because when I was growing up, we didn't have social media and I never got to meet anyone like me. It was one of the coolest experiences of my life. He was 3 years old, and I knew that me and him were different than everyone else, but I didn't know if he knew that. And I sat on the ground with him, and I pulled out my arm, and he had the biggest smile, and he pulled out his arm. And I remember being like teary-eyed, because I was like, I cannot believe a 3-year-old like just understood kind of what I was saying, and without actually saying words. Playing with the national team was a dream come true. Walking out of the tunnel and people were chanting USA and screaming your name, and to be able to represent this country and play alongside the best players in the world was unbelievable. The best advice I've ever gotten was from my dad, especially. It's never let anyone turn your sky into a ceiling. And he told me that really early on, and I think that stuck with me, just because there's no one out there that can say that your dreams are too big. It's your dreams. You can achieve them no matter what happens. If you're missing an arm, if you're missing a leg. You're unique and you're different, but it's really cool and you should celebrate it.
All right, everyone, give it up for Carson Pickett. All right, let's dive right in. So I want to start with having...
I love it.
All right.
Efficiency.
So let's start with you. Tell us about your start in sports and your first soccer memory.
Yeah, so I was born into a very athletic family. My mom played basketball in college, and my dad played soccer in college. And so I think it was a little bit of a battle early on of which sport I was going to play, but let's be honest, there's not many basketball players with one hand. So I think that that might have swayed my decision a little bit, but I also think it was just a bonding moment when I realized that I was going to be able to experience soccer and life with my dad. He's one of my best friends. I think my mom and him are my best friends. And so I knew that if I chose soccer, it was going to be a lot of years of really good times with him and allowing him to coach me and on and off the field.
That's really cool, being able to build a connection with your dad, one of the reasons why you started to play sports. I love that. All right, so on June 28th, I'm sure you remember that date, you made the U.S. national team. How and when did you find out, and what was your immediate reaction?
So, just to be brutally honest, I was actually at the grocery store, naturally getting food, because that's what athletes like to do. We like to eat. And so I got a text from Vlatko, our national team head coach, and I was 28 at the time, and I had never been called into a full-side national team. So I kind of thought, that dream had passed, and I didn't think there was much of a chance anymore. And so I was in the grocery store, and I got a text from him and saying, do you have a minute to talk? I'd love to chat with you. And I didn't know why he was texting me. I figured he wasn't going to call me to tell me I wasn't going to get called in, because that's what happened many years. And so I was like, yes, absolutely. Got my groceries, made sure I checked out first because I had to get my food. And yeah, I called him right away, and he's like, we're so excited to tell you that you have been invited to the national team camp, and you will play in Colorado and Utah against a couple teams, and they're going to be big crowds, and you've waited a long time for this, so we're really excited to bring you in.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I can't imagine what that kind of dream come true, that kind of moment would be like.
It was incredible. And I think, waiting so long, being 28, I didn't think it was going to happen. And then all of a sudden it appeared in my lap. So continued to work hard and no matter what. And I realized that, I started to play soccer because I loved it, not for any certain opportunities that were going to fulfill me for a certain amount of time. I just wanted to enjoy soccer and enjoy my teammates and enjoy the game.
Yeah. Started with that love of the sport.
Yes,
awesome.
Absolutely.
All right, so I'm wearing a shirt that says "Put women's sports on TV." Yes. which is a message that I'm sure all of us here can agree with. And I want to ask you, Carson, how important is visibility to grow equity in women's sports?
Yeah, I think visibility is the most important thing. I like to compare it to, if something in the news happens and you just don't put it on the news, like no one's going to find out and no one's going to be able to learn from that. So for me, it's just having the opportunity to grow the game. We could be the best players, we could be the best athletes, and if we don't have the ability or opportunity for other people to see how great we are, it's just never going to grow the game. And I think having conversations about it and continuing to be, in my opinion, the best team in the world as far as the national team goes. So I think it's the most important thing. And I think that we need to continue to build women's soccer in America especially. And I think we're getting there. So I do appreciate all the behind the scenes work that everyone's done, but I think that we have so much more to accomplish. Yeah.
All right, and bouncing off of that, everyone in the audience, I want to see a show of hands if you've gone to a women's sports game.
Okay, nice.
All right, that's a lot of hands, but not everyone's, right? And it's super, and it's super important to show out and show up for girls and women who are living their dreams playing sports. It's so important. All right, so in that sizzle reel, we saw a video when you had an incredible impact on a little boy with a limb difference just like you. So I wanted you to talk about role models. Who are your role models?
Yeah, so, I think a lot of times when people talk about role models, they think about the people that are in their area, of life, in their businesses, maybe family. And for me, like we just talked about, there hasn't been women's sports much in the news and on TV. So growing up, I didn't have many people to look up to, and I definitely didn't have anyone to look up to that had a limb difference. And so social media wasn't really around, and so I think that I found out very quickly that my role models were my parents, my mom and my dad. I think that I know that they're the reason why I've had so much success today. They've pushed me, they've cried with me, they've probably cried behind closed doors. I can imagine it was quite difficult, having a child that had one arm, and sometimes they're not able to help me because they don't have one arm. And so I realized as I got older, being an only child as well, that they were my best friends and they were my role models for sure. And seeing them in positions today, my dad's an incredible soccer coach, and my mom is a badass. She was at a 6A school in charge, and now she's leading the county office and things like that. So I think that seeing them in roles that are challenging them every single day allows me to challenge myself and see that it doesn't matter what role you're in, that if you got to get stuff done, you got to get stuff done, and that's what they do.
Yeah, and everyone can make an impact, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So I know that for you, language is very important when it comes to awareness. So help us understand the difference between having a disability and a limb difference.
Yeah. So this one is close to my heart, obviously. I think that, as a society, we might change some words into thinking things that maybe they're not actually what they mean. And so I think disability, I think that we have sometimes made it a negative word and had a negative connotation to it. And I don't think that it's actually true. So I know disability means maybe something that hinders you, and you don't have the strength and things like that to do what you want to do. But so in that sense, I think that that's why I don't love that word. But when I was thinking about it more, I realized that there's always a way to do something. Whether someone can get out of bed on their own or they need equipment, they can still do it. And they're no different than anyone else that's fighting a battle every single day. Maybe we don't always see that battle, and maybe we don't always see that someone's missing a leg or an arm. Maybe it's internal, mental, anything like that. So before I would say I don't want to be known as someone with a disability, but to be honest, maybe I do, because the people who have quote-unquote disabilities, if we continue to show that we can do anything we want to do, then maybe that'll change the word. So I think that that's important.
All right, that was a very powerful message, so I'm glad that got a round of applause. All right, so I know for a long time you held back, but recently you decided to show your arm on Instagram. So what led you to make that decision, and how does it feel now looking back on it?
Yeah, so social media, as we all know, especially as women, it can be powerful or it could be terrible. And I think that when my picture went viral, when I was giving an arm tap to the little boy Joseph, I made the mistake of looking at comments on there, and they were pretty mean. There's some amazing comments. It makes me emotional, but there were some really mean comments, and I realized it was this year. I was in my apartment in North Carolina. I live with a teammate, and all of a sudden, something just came to me. I'm like, how am I going to be someone who tells people, well, don't worry about that you look different than everyone else. Show it, but I'm not going to show it on social media. I can show it on the soccer field, but I'm less vulnerable in the soccer field because I have a team around me. I can't really hear the fans. But you're really vulnerable when you put a picture up on Instagram and people comment things that aren't nice. And I think people hide behind screens and things like that. So for the longest time, I didn't even want to show my arm on Instagram. And this was this year. So being 28 years old, not once, besides if it was a soccer picture, did I want to show my arm in nice clothes and nice events and things like that, because I only accepted my arm, it felt like, while I was on the soccer field and not in real life, quote unquote. And so that something just came to me. I'm like, I would be a hypocrite to tell people to, put your arm out there and, show that you're different than everyone, but I'm not going to do it myself. That's absurd. So I walked into my roommate's room and I was like, can you come take a picture of me with my arm out? And I want to put it on my Instagram, and I want to show the world that it really doesn't matter what you look like. That's one thing. That's a battle sometimes you have to fight on your own. But the second battle is, not worrying about what other people think about you or say about you. And so that was really important for me. Thank you.
All right, so bouncing off that a little bit, what advice do you have for overcoming any challenge?
I think this is a little bit difficult for me sometimes because a little background story. I was asked to go to, in Orlando when I played there, we went to the Children's Hospital a lot. And we visited the kids with cancer. And this was something I loved doing. I loved making their day. They smiled so big when we walked in. And I remember someone in charge coming up to me and saying, maybe you can give them advice or, how they can be positive in this time. And I'm like, I'm not going to tell someone who has it way harder than me right now how to be positive. Really, they should be telling me how to be positive, because what I'm going through is nothing compared to what they're going through. And it kind of hit home for me, because I'm like, I actually don't have it that bad. Yes, I'm missing half of my arm, but I'm able to play soccer. I'm able to do something I love. I'm able to live life. And so that was really important for me, just to kind of realize that everyone's journey is different. And I think sometimes in society, we think of adversity as, again, a negative challenge. And I think that, you grow the most when you are in that adversity. Sometimes you're going to fail. Sometimes you're going to succeed, but not to be cliche, but you just got to keep going, because honestly, no one's going to do it for you. And by the end of it, when you succeed, you're going to feel pretty dang good about yourself. So just keep going and just allow yourself to fail. And as I get older, I feel like I am a perfectionist, but as I get older, I have a little more grace for myself, and I think that we all can learn from that and have grace for ourselves.
Yeah, self-love, it's really important.
That's right.
Yeah. All right, so the last question I want to ask you is about Title IX, which I'm sure is important to everyone in this room. Yes. And this year is the 50th anniversary of Title IX, so I want to know what it means to you.
Title IX has changed the game, no pun intended. I mean, it has absolutely changed so much for me personally, but so much for girls and women in sports. 50 years ago, people like me weren't able to do what they love. They weren't able to express themselves through sports, and I think that it's so exciting. I know that there's so much we have to look forward to, but 50 years of this has just given me the opportunity to do something I love that, you know, people before me didn't get to. So just thanking all those people along the way, I think it's really important to acknowledge everyone who comes before you, no matter what profession you're in, because someone's paved the way for you, and you should be doing the same for the younger girls. So it's extremely important. It's amazing, and I'm so blessed that Title IX passed and that we are here today, because I'm getting paid to do something I love, and that's exciting. So, since we're talking about making the future, and I'm a little bit older than you, not by much, but you know, what message do you want to share about making the future and women, and you know, what do you want to leave this audience with?
Thank you for the question. And as I'm sitting here in a room full of so many powerful women who have changed the world already, I am just inspired, and the message I want to leave you all with is just not to forget about the next generation. We are making change and paving the way in our own right at this point, and it just reminds me of one of my favorite quotes, that empowered women empower girls. So that's what I want to leave you all with.
Love that. That was incredible. I love it.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for listening, and thank you, Carson, for sharing your amazing story. Truly inspiring.
Thank you so much, and thanks for coming, you guys.
Please welcome Makers team member Ronisha Ridgway.
Hi, I'm Ron Ridgway, social media coordinators for Maker. I run all of our socials.